public wishing to provide comments. The first speaker, Pamela Mendez. Mendez.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
Of the Board of NYCHA. Excuse me, it's Halloween, and from here, the retirees for 1180 CWA, we're having a little something. So I just don't have to wave and everything else. Excuse my attire. My name is Pamela Mendez. I live in Ingersoll Houses at 25 Monument Walk, apartment 1G. I moved into your development September 17th, 2016, which is a total of 2 years and 1 month. In this short period of time, I have been terrorized by your NYCHA staff and their unprofessional behavior from day one. I've lived in 2 apartments in the same building, 4H and now 1G. My rent has changed 3 times, from $1,018, $1,040, and now $1,005 without my knowledge. For some odd reason, NYCHA staff does not feel they should send tenants a notice, or maybe it's just me, a notice of rent change. On June 19th, I went to court for rent arrears of $2,150, of which I won the case. The calls kept coming, accusing me of owing rent, and my rent statements kept reflecting rent arrears. So I reached out to Mr. Winans, whose reply was, my lawyer didn't do what I said, and you owe money. So I called Miss Stephanie Davis and tried to reach out to her and left numerous messages. And I went to Caladrillo looking for him, but his replacement, Mr. Davis, his assistant, Miss Ackerman, would not let me speak to him. Miss Davis called Mr. Winans and he removed $1,000 but not the full rent. I went to Miss Davis' office just last week and she told me I didn't pay July's rent. So we itemized rent payments from January 1st to present. And I paid rent 11 times because my November rent is paid this year. The resolution I'm seeking is for these rent arrears to be removed from my account. Ladies and gentlemen, I can't in 3 minutes tell you all, but since the borough office can't resolve this situation, I'm requesting an appointment with a board member to stop your staff from terrorizing me. Thank you for affording me the opportunity to speak. I don't know if my 3 minutes are up, but it's a whole lot more that goes along with this. But this is just the present, what's going on. I have never not paid my rent. I've lived in an apartment where they tore the walls down around me. I sleep with a CPAP machine. I have numerous health issues. I can't get them resolved. I've been here before, and Caladrillo intercepted me from there. But this time I'm speaking. I know it probably is not what's on this here sheet, but I'm at wit's end. You're talking to a woman who pays her bills. I have a 9+ credit score, and I could show it to you. I do not shirk my responsibilities when it comes to bill payment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Somebody will get back to you today.
Thank you.
The second speaker, NYCHA Torres. Thank you.
Good morning.
My name is NYCHA Torres, and as most of you know, I am the president of Alfred E. Smith Houses. I've been here before about the issue about the Sandy renovations. I am now also here before you about the roof renovations. I have a package. Please add it to the binder that I gave you the last time. Basically, I'm coming before you because now the well-being and the safety and the health of my residents is at risk. And there is no going back. We are clear. We have been at the table. We've done everything. We have a task force meeting. We have, from our end, tried to assist the contractor to speed the process. But the safety of my residents is the most important thing to me and to the executive board. Be very clear that if anything happens to one resident, the entire development will be affected. As I tell everybody, everyone in Alfred E. Smith is related to everybody. So anything happening to one person happens to all of us. The tree is an issue, and given the weather and the climate, we already had an incident where it was windy, the rains came, and sure enough, by the grace of God, thank God for Rosh Hashanah, a tree fell in the park where the kids play. So I'm coming to you because we need a resolution and it needs to be resolved. It can't be left for tomorrow. It has to be resolved. And I don't know what else to do. You know, I haven't gone to the press. I haven't made a scene. I've tried to do everything in order. And so I ask you to seriously read what our arborist has written, what they've done, and what our legal team has put together, because I don't know what to do anymore. But the lives of my residents are now at risk, and I can't. Okay? Thank you, and have a good day, and have a happy Halloween.
Stay for another minute, please. So this is a particular tree that is a hazard?
No, it's several trees.
Several trees that are a hazard,
Right.
A cluster, or?
It's a cluster, and it's in the report and in all the paperwork, because we had a walkthrough with Parks Department, the forestry, because we have a task force in Smith, so our elected officials board in the U.S. Forestry, and the Parks Department was supposed to come in and we agreed, we were fine with that the Parks Department come in, right, and say these trees have to be knocked down because they are no longer safe. That has not happened. You know, I can't wait for tomorrow. I don't want to hear later on, oh, we're sorry. No. Whoever needs to contact, whatever needs to get done with, and we're fine. If the Parks Department says this tree has to come down because it's no longer safe, then take it down, right? Take it down. The other piece of it is that we're going to request that there's $200,000 already in the contract set aside for the trees. The contractor has to put in escrow money, because it's not going to come out of our management budget, right, to fix whatever needs to be fixed. And they have to replace every tree that they knocked down, because it's pure negligence, because that they followed the contract from the beginning. If they had done that, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Okay?
So we got a danger is established by the trees and the follow-up to correcting.
And by the way, the walkthrough was in July. Come on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Ms. Nellie McKay, please step up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I think everybody knows me about this time. I'm Nellie McKay from Patterson Houses. And I'm coming again about the letters, about the tenants. They seem like they don't care to throw the garbage out the window. Something has to be done. Those, housing is a beautiful place. And like I said before, we have to work together. And you have to send letters to people and let them know that they can't throw garbage out when the incinerator's working 24/7. And it looks bad when you walk around the corner and the guys clean. They clean up in the morning, and the people, I don't know whether they're too lazy to walk to the incinerator or just open the window and throw it out in the garden. This is not the way I'm used to living. The manager can send letters, they throw them back in the hallway. But if letters come from your office, sir, then they may think twice before this garbage out the window. And fine, and you can send me and fine me, but I'm not gonna pay it. You can fine me. Because I'm 89 years old going on that. I would dare to throw garbage out the window. You see, we wasn't raised like that. In my day, we had to burn and sweep up debris after it was burned and put it in the bag. These people have everything in the palm of their hand. Please help me, because I am getting tired of seeing garbage around 2645. And on the 7th of November, I have an invitation. I did it last night late. And if I made a mistake, forgive. I'd like to see you and one of your colleagues at 301 East 143rd Street, a wrap luncheon. So would you please come to Patterson and bring some of your colleagues with you? I asked you before a long time ago, but since it's food, maybe you'd come. and some southern food. I want to make southern food.
Sounds inviting.
Come.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you.
Please get the letters out. I'm not coming down here just to talk. I'm coming down here for you to work with NYCHA. I live there. I wouldn't give up my apartment. I love the community. I love the tenants, but I spoke to one tenant this morning, and he said, don't seem like the tenants care. Because the guys clean, that don't mean they have to come back and clean up their garbage. Once they clean, it's up to every tenant to help keep the place clean. Would you please?
Thank you.
I'm begging now. Would you please come?
Well, you got me with the food.
Dr. Shane.
Thank you, Ms. McKay. Chair, that concludes the public comments portion. We will proceed with the regular calendar. The first order of business being a motion to adopt the minutes of our regular meeting, which was held on Thursday, September 27, 2018. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And then I'll have the chair's remarks.
Okay. I'm gonna wait for the alarm to stop going.
Okay.
So, good morning, everyone. I will be brief. We have some presentations today in addition to the calendar items. I would note that yesterday, NYCHA had an opportunity to testify before the City Council Committee, Housing Committee, on our the age of technology.
It's a resident.
Fair enough. On our redevelopment plans, the last time we had testified, NYCHA had testified on this subject was a couple of years ago, more than 2 years ago. So there was a good deal to talk about in the number of things that have advanced and the continued evolution of thinking about the challenges that we face and the approaches that we are adopting. There were really two, in addition to the particular sets of facts around individual projects and issues associated with that in council members' districts. There were really two major thoughts that we communicated with the council. One was our increasing conviction that the principal means for us to have dramatic impact on deteriorating conditions in the housing stock that makes up the New York City Housing Authority is Section 8 and the RAD demonstration projects that are embodied in Section 8 that utilize Section 8, and that our intention, certainly since that presentation to the council a few years ago, but reiterated publicly in a number of ways, was to dramatically increase the numbers of units that we're focusing on. And the number at this moment in time is in excess of 40,000 units. So the paradox here is that's probably as big as, or close to as big as, the size of even the largest other public housing communities in the country. And of course, it's less than 25% of our housing stock. So this is, even numerically, not a 100% answer to the imperatives of our circumstance, but it is a sizable amount of units. And while Section 8 is requires adaptation from us in the form of public-private partnerships, it is consistent with our mission of preserving, protecting, assuring affordable housing for our tenants. The second point that was made to the council is in areas where we are seeking to create opportunities to generate other kinds of revenue through the new construction on available land, that we, as a matter of policy, recognizing that we're not the only seat at the table and that there are other interests that would be advanced, that our voice is going to be very much focused on maximizing the dollars that can be obtained from these deals, because those dollars can also be put to work to address the pressing needs that we have throughout NYCHA. We reiterated our commitment to our share of the mayor's affordable housing plan, our share being 10,000 new units, 3,000 are done or close to done, and we're committed to the remaining 7,000 as well. So it was a lengthy hearing, a good deal of focus from the members' perspective on issues and needs within the projects, within their districts, but it was also a good opportunity for us to share our thinking with the council, and in that sense was a positive interaction. So I'll stop there and we can move on.
Thank you. Continue with the presentation.
Microphone's a little sorry. Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, great. Good morning. My name is Joey Koch, and I am the new Senior Vice President for Support Services and Operations. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present on the 2018-2019 heating season. Before we begin, I thought it would be a good idea to remind the board of the breadth of NYCHA's size and heating infrastructure. NYCHA has 2,516 buildings, serviced by 605 heating plants and 2,097 boilers, of which 1966 are under NYCHA's heating management services purview. For this heating season, beginning October 1st, 2018 through October 28th, we have experienced 160 heat and hot water unplanned outages at 70 developments, affecting over 32,000 units and over 72,000 people. Restoration of service took on average 12.8 hours to complete. No NYCHA resident should be without heat or hot water service. However, much of the challenges this past month were due to fluctuating temperatures, which put a strain on our old heating systems. When the temperature is continuously shifting below 55 degrees to above, our systems cannot adequately self-regulate. Instead, staff must manually turn the heating distribution system on and off to maintain service while not overheating units. The need for this manual intervention should hopefully subside as the weather becomes consistently cooler. Before comparing this season to last season, we should discuss terminology that is used throughout NYCHA to inform tenants and NYCHA staff on the status of heat and hot water issues in our buildings. An outage is a service disruption in an apartment line, stair hall, entire building, or an entire development. NYCHA experiences both planned and unplanned outages. An outage is declared when staff confirms equipment is not working properly and causing a disruption in service. NYCHA is aware of a heat or hot water condition if A, an increase in work orders from multiple apartments, apartment lines, stair halls, or buildings are observed by staff and reported by residents. When upon the daily inspections, staff observes problems with equipment, or when staff monitoring our computerized heating automated system, aka CHAS, are alerted remotely. Outages can last anywhere from 2 hours to many days. A work order is a ticket created by either staff or a resident identifying a deficiency. NYCHA admittedly had issues providing heat and hot water to our residents during the 2017-2018 heating season. We had 1,828 outages and 2,937 hot water outages. Heat outages affected over 151,000 units, and hot water outages affected 159,000 units. The bulk of these outages occurred during the coldest months in recent memories. Please note that the outage number above includes outages that lasted between a few hours and a few days. The average outage lasted 15.9 hours last season. Last year, we received over 300,000 work orders for heating-related issues. Many of these work orders were created based on resident complaints associated with the outages above. Given last year's problems, we made a concerted effort to improve heating and hot water services to our residents. Firstly, we started the planning process for the 2018-2019 season much earlier. In April, we began the overhaul process, which is a two-step procedure that evaluates repairs needed to the heating systems and equipment and then makes the repairs identified. We have overhauled 98% of our boilers throughout NYCHA. Throughout the summer, we have been fixing the problems and continue to make necessary repairs. Examples of this work include repiping the feed water pump lines at LaGuardia, Jefferson, Baruch, Wagner, and Washington, repiped equalizer lines to individual boilers at 30 developments, replaced the condensation tank at Drew Hamilton. We've purchased 5 mobile boilers and are currently renting an additional 6 to increase redundancies when needed. Please note that during this meeting, the board will be voting on the approval of additional rentals of mobile boilers. 12 heating plants have received new boilers, with several plants receiving upgrades to all their boilers, and new window balances that help retain heat have been installed at our buildings for seniors, which is about 7,600 apartments. NYCHA recognizes that outages will unfortunately happen. However, we are committed to decreasing staff response time and heat and hot water restoration times. To do so, we have increased staff from 476 last season to 491 this season. NYCHA utilizes a civil service title called Heating Plant Technician that has become increasingly difficult to fill and retain. To better equip NYCHA with the skills needed to respond to heat and hot water problems, we repurposed our vacancies. We created highly skilled teams to properly and expeditiously respond to heating and hot water issues. These roving teams are deployed as needed when issues arise, both during normal business hours and on nights and weekends. Roving teams are made up of heating plant technicians and stationary engineers, allowing deficiencies to be diagnosed and repaired immediately when possible. We anticipate that this increase with bodies will improve our services to our residents. NYCHA additionally made the determination that we needed to be creative in solving our heating problems and look to supplement our existing resources. That being said, we contracted with 2 vendors to help oversee our heating systems. Currently, they operate in 46 developments and will be rolled out to 67 developments upon completion of capital work. The addition of these contracts allows for redeployment of staff to implement a better staff-to-boiler ratio. The ratio of frontline staff to boiler is now 1 to 3.6. We acknowledge difficulties communicating with our residents last heating season. Last year, we implemented a telephonic system that notified residents of service interruptions and restorations. It was a basic call that did not wait for feedback or interaction. This year, when called about a service restoration, residents now have the option of confirming their service was restored or being connected to the customer contact center for further assistance with a persisting issue. The triage questions used by the customer contact center to diagnose residents' heat and hot water complaints have been improved to better help identify the root cause of the issue, allowing NYCHA to better direct our resources. NYCHA is moving into the 21st century with updates to the My NYCHA app, where users may report their heat and hot water issues. They will follow the same smart flow as the customer contact center triage questions, helping with diagnosis and addressing repairs. Additionally, a simple 2-step recreation process will be included to allow residents to flag a persisting issue after service restoration. These enhancements will be available in various app stores in December. We are also looking to include push notifications in the near future. Thus far, we have seen improvements in response and restoration time, staff-to-boiler ratio, and have improved communication methods with residents. As noted earlier, the ratio of frontline staff to boiler is 1.36, down from the high of 1 to 4.8. And our response and restoration time is 19% faster, down to 12.8 hours from 15.9 last October. We are now able to better communicate with residents to identify and address deficiencies and provide residents with the opportunity to validate conditions in their units after a service interruption is resolved. Again, I want to be clear that we do unfortunately expect outages to occur, but we hope to be better equipped and be able to solve the heat and water problems as they arise more quickly. This presentation has been very focused on boilers, but I would be remiss if I did not note that boilers are not the only source of heating issues. Our aging infrastructure of steam pipes, building risers, external building envelopes, and hot water generation and distribution systems, just to name a few, all contribute to NYCHA's heating challenges. Thank you for your continued support of our efforts. Any questions? Yes.
I do know that in your efforts to take care of this issue with the heating and the hot water, not every development accomplishes this in the same manner. And so I bring up that point for the simple reason of the buildings that deal with, or the developments that have the sensors, where you have the heat is based on hot water and not an electrical component.
Okay.
And so, are you looking at those sensors that are malfunctioning in the developments where they deal with hot water being the heat as well as hot water?
So where there are sensors that are alerting us to issues, we use that device to be able to help pinpoint what's going on. If we get there and we realize that it's actually there's a problem with the sensor, we will make those necessary repairs so that the sensors are accurately reflecting what's going on in the development.
Okay. The other thing with the roving teams, you added 15, I'm assuming HPTs to the heating plant technician.
Yeah, HPTs are part of the roving teams.
You added 15. Of those 15, are they assigned to the roving teams only, or are they assigned to developments as well?
So roving HPTs are in developments, and there are HPTs that are with the roving teams. And the roving teams are HPTs and stationary engineers, so that they have the necessary skill set to identify what the problem is on site and have a wrench in hand and fix it accordingly. It allows us to have a more sophisticated level of training so that we can address the problems as they arise immediately.
And now it's more a matter of suggestion. Do you think you would need more than 15?
The heating season has just started, yes. And so far, our roving teams have been doing an excellent job. NYCHA, we always need resources, so any money to hire any extra people is always welcome. But right now, we've seen results with the roving teams, and we will continue to monitor and see if we do need additional resources.
The other suggestion, and I'm done, people, I don't want to take up too much time. There was a notion at one time for the people that are doing taking the calls at the CCC, for us to look into getting residents to be part of that team, because the residents themselves will be able to describe the issue, and when they're asking the triage questions, to better serve and give that information to whoever is coming to make the repairs. Hence, someone not living in NYCHA that's taking the questions may not know the internal issues. And although they may be efficient, it would be more efficient for someone who already knows and has experienced it firsthand. So it's just a suggestion. Maybe you might want to get some residents to get on the job.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
I have a question.
Yes.
In regards to the buildings where the installations for the balances were installed in the senior apartments, do you plan on also installing balances in other residents' apartments as well?
I think it's something that we certainly will be looking at to see how those balances, they're affecting what we're seeing in terms of heating issues. And once we know that they've been successful in those apartments, then we will certainly look into making that fix in all apartments.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll proceed with the calendar items. 5.
Good morning, board members. Deborah Goddard for Capital. Just to round out the presentation, Joey's presentation on heating from a capital perspective, want to report that we are on the street with the bid packages for the mayor's 9 packages, 11 sites. We said we would do our design in 6 months, down from 12, and we have done it with the assistance of great outside engineering firms, as well as the Department of Buildings meeting with us to catch issues ahead of time. So we will knock on wood about good bids and be back here in several months, hopefully, to report on the award of the new contracts. Victor, if I may, I'll also respond to your questions. The CCC operators actually now have a script to ask those sorts of questions that you were suggesting would help better pinpoint when a resident calls in with an outage or a heat issue. They have a series of questions to go down based on what those conversations have been like in the past. So, item number 1 is the recommendation to award a contract in connection with the Sandy restoration at Isaac's houses to Technical Construction Services. The low bidder, and a contract amount slightly over $23 million. This would handle replacement of damaged mechanical, electrical, and plumbing system equipment, which we take up off of out of sea level rise threat, site lighting, and therefore includes 2 new utility buildings as well as new natural gas engine generators. Technico has had experience with us. It's been satisfactory. Their VNC is pending, and therefore this award is not final until that VNC is cleared. Their bid was close to 25% under our estimate. We met with them. It's largely attributed to their electrical sub bid. Technico knows our work. We've got good experience with them. We believe that they can deliver on the bid that they proposed, and we recommend going forward. They are proposing 7 Section 3 hires, and this, of course, is a FEMA insurance block grant funded project. There are no questions. I'll move to items 2 through 4, all of which relate to requirement contracts for ground improvements on an as-needed basis, largely generated through our City Council funded projects. We are recommending 3 contracts with 3-year terms and a 1-year renewal option. For items number 2 and 4, we are recommending an award to Empire Control Abatement, Inc. Item 2 relates to Brooklyn and Staten Island. Item 4 relates to Bronx and Queens. These were bid on a geographic basis because we usually get better bids attuned to more local costs across our boroughs. Empire is a woman-owned enterprise. We've had positive experience with them. Their B&C is pending, so again, this award is not finalized until we get that cleared. Item number 3 relates to the Manhattan Borough. That is the recommended award to GEM Quality Corporation. GEM is a minority-owned business. We've had satisfactory experience with them. Their VNC is cleared, so there are no issues to preclude award. In terms of Section 3 hires, Empire is proposing 8 hires for both of its contracts. GEM is proposing 6. And as I said, this will largely be funded by both federal and city funds as needed. Item number 5, let me step back a little bit. This is a recommendation to rescind a prior award and make a new award. Previously, the board voted to award the contract for roofing and railing replacement at Webster Houses to RSN. When the law department was reviewing the letter of award, they noticed that there was a technical problem with the bid. They had named their subcontractors, which is a requirement, but they had not submitted the PLA letters of assent for the subcontractors. This may seem rather technical, but law's advice, which I ended up agreeing with after arguing a little bit, was that in order to protect the integrity of what Wick's Law is about. Wick's Law tries to prevent GCs from bid shopping after they get an award. So they are required to name their subs, and they can't change those subs unless the sub itself really withdraws for business reasons. Without the letters of assent, there was this opening for the GC to change sub bidders and blame it on the sub bidders. I did not believe we should get into a fact-finding litigation mode, and so agreed with law's advice that we should rescind. They didn't do what was stated very clearly in the form of proposal. We should rescind and go with the new awardee. I will say we are having some problems with this, which is a little mystifying because the form of proposal is very clear. But to that end, going back to boilers, when we had our pre-bid meeting, I was very explicit to folks, please pay attention to the FOP. You'll get in trouble if you don't. And in meeting with procurement yesterday, we agreed to post sort of the 5 big issues on our procurement website for hopefully alert some of these folks. That said, I am recommending to you that we rescind the award to RSN and that we award to Neelam. Neelam is a minority-owned business. Their bid was still under our estimate slightly. Their VNC is cleared, and they are proposing 2 Section 3 hires. This is part of the mayor's roofing initiative. I'm happy to answer any questions about that. If not, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Terrence Schwartz. I'm Chief of the Employee Disciplinary Division within the Law Department, and I'm presenting item number 6 on behalf of Kelly McNeil, the EVP for Legal Affairs and General Counsel. This morning we are requesting the board's authorization to amend the April 1975 resolution relating to trial officers, specifically to remove 4 trial officers and to add 5 trial officers to our panel of trial officers. Are there any questions?
This is just for my knowledge. Trial officers, are they moved around, sort of like serve 3 years and then they have to be changed, or 5 years and then they have to be changed, or they stay until something changes?
The trial officers are appointed and they serve a term of 1 year, and at the end of each year, either they can leave or the housing authority can end their term. So each year we send a letter to the trial officers and we notify them whether they're going to continue on the panel or not continue on the panel.
Can you just comment, I guess, generally on the qualifications of these individuals and the thinking behind retiring some of them and bringing on new ones?
Yes, certainly. The primary goal of seeking trial officers is to be able to have a available panel to deal with disciplinary cases that the housing authority is pursuing. And there's 2 factors involved. One is whether the trial officer is on the panel, and the second is if the trial officer is actually available to do cases, so we can schedule the cases as soon as we can. And secondarily, if the case has to go for a second day, that the trial officer is available for an adjournment or a second day within a reasonable period of time. That being said, the factors we look for in the trial officers are judicial temperament, relevant experience, ability to handle the proceeding, because these proceedings are pretty heavily litigated. Each employee is represented by an attorney, and to be fair, to be able to write well, and to be able to return the decisions. We require that the trial officers return the decisions within 30 days of receipt of the record below. And in addition, these trial officers have experience as arbitrators in various related areas, including employee discipline, teacher discipline, the area of special education, and we reviewed their writing samples. We also spoke to at least 2 to 3 references for each trial officer candidate, and we got excellent feedback in terms of the criteria we're looking for, and particularly in terms of the ethical standards, how they relate to individuals, how they give all parties or witnesses in the proceeding an opportunity to say their piece and to express their views in a fair manner. So probably our biggest criteria is looking for an impartial trial officer who can handle the proceeding, is fair, and can write well and quickly.
Got it. I guess I was a little, I was wondering, given the board's limited sort of purview into what they do and the qualifications of these individuals, why it's a board level decision?
It's kind of it's because in 1975 and probably before then, the board, and this is relating to Section 75 of the Civil Service Law, the board members actually until 2013, actually, the cases were presented to the board members directly. And then in 2013, a panel was designated of senior executives to handle these cases. But historically, this has been a board appointed, the board delegates trial officers to this role. And so what we're doing today and requesting from the board today is consistent with what has been done at least since 1975, and the last time the board approved additions and removal of trial officers was on July 26th of last year.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Cal Bruno, the Director of Department of Management Planning within Operations, and I'm going to be presenting items 7 through 9. Item 7 is for a requirement contract for the purchase and delivery of calamine doors. I am requesting that this item be withdrawn based on the decision to procure IDIQ contracts instead of awarding to a single vendor. IDIQ contracts will give us more flexibility in the event one vendor is unable to keep up with the demand. In the next few months, we will be returning to the board to reject all bids and seek authorization to award the new contracts.
So this is relevant for item 7 through 9.
No, that's just item 7.
Just item
Just
7.
item
Okay. And IDIQ?
Indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity. That's a type of contract. Right? There's no exclusivity, like a different from a requirement contract that has exclusivity. We'll be able to use multiple IDIQ contracts to deliver citywide. Should a vendor not be able to provide the level of delivery that we need, we could tap into other vendors. With the requirement contract, it would go to one vendor. So this gives us more flexibility to allow there's peaks and times where we need a higher demand and much quicker, and this allows us to have more than one vendor to be able to provide those deliveries. This is only for the material; it's not for the installation. This contract installation's handled by our staff, so this is supplying and delivering the doors.
Are the supply of doors more variable than other types of supplies? Or I guess 1A, and then 1B is, are we looking at IDIQ for other materials as well? Are we moving in that? Is this a sort of a policy directional shift that the agency is making?
I mean, I think that there is a look at IDIQ where I guess we think that there's an item that maybe is difficult for one vendor to provide, and you have at large quantities or in quick demand, and you have additional options with multiple vendors to provide. I'm sorry, and the first part of your question was
just whether doors in particular are more variable, like if there's a supply issue in particular with doors. Because this is the first time I recall talking about IDIQ. I maybe.
just gonna help you a little bit here. So we're moving in this direction with specialty items. So doors, cabinets,
Got it.
kitchen countertops.
I mean, it seems to make sense if we could have multiple
Mhm.
sources.
Historically, we've went with requirement contracts, so we're moving in this direction.
Okay.
So now I have a question. So these calamine doors, are they common or are they an exception that we're having this issue? Calamine doors, in other words, you have wooden doors, you have steel doors, you have all types of doors. Is calamine doors a regular thing that you can just get any vendor from anywhere to get to deliver to you?
Well, they're specially made to our specs.
Okay. So that's the,
Yeah.
okay.
But I thought you said we're switching from calamine doors.
No.
No, we're
We're switching.
rescinding we're asking to to pull back the item so we could, which was a requirement contract to supply
Yeah.
and deliver, so we could bid out IDIQ and have multiple sources to supply and deliver calamine
Okay. I
doors.
misheard you. I thought you said we're also.
It's the
No, the
same
doors
item,
will stay the
it's
same.
It's the same item, it's just a different
Yeah,
procurement
different
method.
Right.
Yeah,
Right, the items will stay the same under the IDIQ.
because it's more
contracts.
flexibility.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's the primary reason.
Thank you.
Item 8 is requesting award of a requirement contract for apartment painting on an as-need basis at Douglas Consolidated. It is a 2-year contract with a 1-year extension. Authorization is requested to award to Beazler Painting. The first and second lowest bidders were deemed non-responsive due to unrealistic low estimate for labor costs with their bids. There is a 20% variance between Beazler's bid and our estimate. Technical Services confirmed that the cost estimate is accurate. The difference in estimate is due to Beazler being able to obtain materials needed to do the work at a discounted rate. They're projecting Section 3 hires. Any questions?
I received some kind of communications that there were gonna be other developments added to this.
So it's covers Douglas Consolidated, right, which covers Douglas 1, Douglas 2, Douglas Addition,
Right.
and 830 Amsterdam
Right.
Avenue. That's all covered by the same contract.
Okay, so then because I didn't quite understand the communications that I received. I thought that that it was being changed because more developments were gonna be added to this contract. And I was about to ask, what developments were they besides this?
Remember Gonzalez, initially the reso came with just Douglas 1 and Douglas 2, Douglas Addition, and 830 Amsterdam were added subsequently. The first time you got the reso, it had just one Douglas 1 on it, and the other 3 were added subsequently.
Okay.
Okay?
I swore that they were all there in the beginning when I first got it. So that's why when I received that communique, I was slightly confused. I thought that there were more development in addition to these 4, that there were
Just
more.
these 4.
Okay,
Right. It covers all of Douglas Consolidation.
got it. I know the location very well.
Item 9 is requesting award of requirement contract for apartment painting at Wagner Houses on an as-needed basis. It is a 2-year contract with a 1-year extension. Authorization is requested to Simcoe Enterprise. The first lowest bidder, Atma Construction, was deemed non-responsive for failure to participate in the New York State Department of Labor Paint Apprenticeship Program. There is a 25% variance between the Simcoe bid and our estimate. Technical Services confirmed that their cost estimate is accurate. The difference in estimate, again, is due to the Simcoe being able to obtain the materials needed to do the work at a discounted rate. They are projecting 2 Section 3 hires. Any questions? Thank you.
Good morning again. I'm presenting on items 10, 11, 12, and 13. These are seeking authorization for approval of 4 6-month extension for requirement contracts to replace sump, pump, and tank rooms between the authority and Genuine Plumbing and Heating. The procurement group invited over 200 vendors to review the solicitation and iSupplier, and Genuine Plumbing and Heating was the sole responsive and responsible bidder for all 4 contracts to replace sump pumps and tank rooms in each borough. There's a contract for Brooklyn, one for Manhattan, one for the Bronx, one for Queens and Staten Island. Despite advertising the city record, posting on the authority's website, and doing extensive outreach to companies that provide these services, the authority only received 1 response to the RFQ. The contract scope of work includes, but is not limited to, furnishing all labor, materials, and equipment to remove and install sump pumps in tank rooms. All equipment installed under these requirement contracts shall carry a 1-year labor and material guarantee starting from the date of installation and satisfactory testing of the new system as confirmed by the authority in writing. Each of the 4 contracts is costing us $650,000. Our estimate was $610,000. This will be Genuine's first contract with the city, or is Genuine's first contract with the city. They are not a minority or women-owned business. And they have indicated that they will not be hiring any Section 3 hires. Any questions? Hi.
What is your sense as to why only 1 bidder?
So apparently, the installation of these particular sump pumps are rather complicated and require an electrical license as opposed to just a normal plumbing license. So we needed the vendor to have both the electrical expertise and the plumbing expertise.
Mm-hmm.
We think that contributed to it.
So I'm a little confused. They determine who does the Section 3 hiring?
Because of the complicated nature of the work that we're asking them to do with the installation, they apparently, my understanding is that because it's so technical, it falls outside of that. I apologize if I misstated.
Okay.
And then item 14, I believe. Yes. I'm seeking authorization of the approval to award, wrong one, I apologize. To approve a change order to a requirement contract awarded to Power Mechanical for the rental and installation of temporary steam and hot water boilers, heating exchangers, and temporary oil tanks, authorized by Board Resolution 13-10/23-13 for an initial 2-year term with one-year renewal option, and a subsequently amended for an extended 3-year term to increase the not to exceed amount in order to fund the continued provision of services during the additional extended period. Contract information is this requirements contract provides for the rental and installation of temporary steam and hot water, heating boilers, heat exchangers, and temporary oil tanks. The scope of work includes, but is not limited to, the rental and installation of temporary steam or hot water heating boilers, heating exchangers, and temporary oil tanks to be delivered as an on-needed basis to any authority development citywide. The services of this requirements contract are utilized to supply temporary heating and or hot water in the event of an emergency, a planned renovation, or when something is out of commission. It's a redundancy that we very much need. This change order is required to increase the not to exceed amount in order to fund the continued provision of services during a 3rd additional term, and will ensure uninterrupted services to the authority's development citywide. Power Mechanical has completed approximately $6 million worth of temporary steam and hot water boilers, exchanges, and temporary oil services to the authority over the last 5 years. They are not a minority and women-owned business. Section 3 hiring is not required. Any questions? Thank you.
Joey, just while we're on the heat, I do have an answer for the board that was earlier question regarding our CCC operators. So currently, our full-time staff at CCC, about 1/3 of them are NYCHA residents. We will be speaking with our vendor who provides the temporary operators for the winter. to see about doing better, to hire more residents on a temporary basis.
Okay, thank you.
But
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
I have a question just generally about Section 3 hires. Are they typically trained on other contracts? I mean, is there training involved generally?
I'm not sure I'm the best
We're gonna-
person to answer
We're
that
gonna
question, to be
bring
honest.
someone up to answer that.
I can hit part of that for you. Some of them are already specialized in what they do. They're just not working.
Right.
So when they turn in their applications to the management office in order to be included in the Section 3 program, some of them already have expertise. Some of them, not all.
We have a full bench today.
Yeah.
Hello, Board. Lenise Regar from Reese at NYCHA. With Section 3, you are typically qualified for the work. So if they do require special training, we do look and source for qualified individuals. There are some contractors who also offer training to get entry level or even skilled referrals to do the work as well.
So now that brings up another question. I'm so sorry. But, so you have the PLA, you have the Section 3, and you have the union.
Right.
Are these three separate entities? And can a resident be hired and not become a union member? Or will he or she not be hired if she chooses not to be in the union? Because that's been an issue.
I don't think I'm the correct person to answer this question.
Bring Deborah back up to the.
I've become more of an expert in the PLA than I intended.
This is like the World Series game going into the 18th inning, right? We're going to use every player, right? So.
And who won the series? Okay.
There's two things that I like about it. The only two things. That the American League won, and that Cora will be the first Puerto Rican youngest manager to ever win a World Series in baseball history.
And he said, take the trophy down there.
And that's the extent of it.
So you correctly identified sort of the three parties. Under the PLA, the contractor is required to hire, for every 8 people, 7 from the union hall and 1 not from the union hall. That was supposed to encourage and create the leeway for the Section 3 hires, among other things. They were also supposed to be providing apprenticeship slots and training. Frankly, we've had problems on those latter 2 aspects, but they can get in. The contractor pays all of the union benefits through the union hall for that 8th person who does not have to have come from the union.
Okay. Okay.
I have one more question. I don't know if, Deborah, you can answer it, but so some contracts, they're not required to have Section 3. Some contracts have 0 and some have so going back to the genuine plumbing and heating, so I presume that they are required as opposed to not required, which, item 15, 14, 15 have. So
there are a few exceptions like grounds work, but they're very few that are not. I'm sorry, that's the PLA. Section 3 is a goal for new hires. So first of all, you have to start with the premise that they're going to do new hiring for that job. If they're not going to create new hires, they do not have a Section 3 requirement. Some also, as you've seen, are as needed contracts. So they will do they will work with Reese at the time they're issued a task order, but they don't know what kind of work they're getting until they're issued a task order. And at that time, they make the commitment based on that particular job, what they're going to do. So you could see a variety in how Section 3 is presented in the vote.
Right. I'm just thinking about kind of like what room do the contractors have to sort of like move in and out of having, with explanations about skills and technicalities like that. Is there room to do that, to move out of not hiring Section 3? When they,
I think what would happen is what's previously stated is if there's a job like an you need to be a licensed electrician. Our folks and the contractor need to do outreach, make that skill and requirement explicit. But if we can't source them or they do not attract someone, then they can't meet that slot.
Okay, so it's on us.
I think, well, I think there's, it's on the contractor to do the outreach they said they were going to do, make the effort they said they were going to do. Reese is really a supplement, but because it's a Section 3 requirement imposed on us, imposed on them, I do think it has to be a partnership. We just can't say to the contractor, go and do your best and talk to us later. So Reese does really help them a lot.
Yeah, especially on a no vendor, no genuine plumbing and heating is a new contractor. So there might be some training involved with them.
Right. Well, and we also try to make, these are the sorts of things where you'll hear that people don't bid because they're scared of it. So again, we try in pre-bids and stuff say, it's a goal, come in, we'll work with you. Do not bid because you're scared of it.
And just for the record, Deborah made reference to an aspect of the PLA that goes to apprentices and trainees. And we have been very disappointed in the workings of the PLA in regard to those categories. And the PLA expires at the end of this calendar year. And we're very focused on figuring out how to strengthen those requirements as a condition of extending the PLA beyond the termination point. Very disappointing results. Apprenticeships are complicated, but the trainee positions in particular should be tailor-made for our residents.
Good morning. I'm Matt Charney, Director of New Construction for NYCHA's Real Estate Development Department. Board Resolution 15 authorization is requested to enter into a 99-year ground lease with the not-for-profit developer New Destiny Housing for approximately 11,000 square foot parcel of land located at East 165th Bryan Avenue, the NYCHA development in the Bronx, at block 2750. For the construction of a building with 61 affordable housing units and 1 superintendent unit, and ground floor social services and a rear yard for the project. New Destiny Housing is a nonprofit mission-based organization that focuses on providing permanent housing opportunities and social services to survivors of domestic violence and their children. They have 15 previous developments that they're operating currently. 60% of the units will be supported with targeted to that population, and the remainder will be tenanted through the housing lottery with a 25% preference for those units for NYCHA residents of the remaining units. Board Resolution 18-131-15 authorized the submission of the application, the Section 18 application to HUD. That was submitted on June 27th of this year, and approval was received on September 28th. This project is planned to be financed at the end of this year. Any questions?
We're on 15, right?
Yes.
Okay. There was some wording in the contract, and it was about social services officers and the homeless and that sort of thing. And so I asked, the social services, is the actual social services, or is this just a space for the residents to have? That's one.
Right.
Second part of that is, within the homeless, do you also include the homeless veteran as part of that particular issue?
Yeah. So on your first question, the social services are provided on site to the residents of that building in the supportive units. So to the victims of domestic violence and their families that are living there. There is no set aside or specific preference within that group for veterans.
For the veteran. And the only reason I ask that is when you have homeless, that's broken down into various categories.
Yeah.
I wouldn't understand why you wouldn't add one more to that category.
Yeah. I think there's social service providers like New Destiny that focus on different segments of the population, and New Destiny's focus is on the survivors of domestic violence. It's doesn't mean it's exclusive to non-veterans, but it's that's the population they target. According to their website, actually, almost a third of homeless people in New York cite domestic violence as at least one of the reasons for their homelessness.
So that's the basis they're targeting on domestic violence.
Exactly.
Okay.
I have a question about the size of the units. So the affordable, the 60% AMI, the majority of them, well, not the majority, but about, over 50% are studios.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you look at that as well in the proposal of the developer and how that gets allocated? Because then those affordable units, which are, good at 60% AMI, and predominantly have to go to singles, not to families.
The unit sizes and mixes are usually always determined by HPD and HDC or whoever's financing the project. So it is something that's considered during the RFP, but it's usually left to them to weigh in.
And I guess also there's only 6 units set aside for NYCHA residents.
That's correct.
So I was wondering why that number was so low as well.
The 60% of the units will be for the targeted population for the supportive housing. So of the remaining units, 6 is 25% of the remaining units. So it's not, the 25% is our standard preference for non-supportive units. So it's not a large portion of this building.
And those 6 units have to come from they're smaller units, no 3 bedrooms, very few 2 bedrooms. So those designated, so it's impossible or almost impossible for them to be in NYCHA families. It's just individual, singles.
I
know. I understood your answer. I get you that the decision's not made there.
It's our choice.
Yeah.
Not enough to go around.
Got it, but we're stating.
Any other questions on that? Resolution 16 is in regards to the Next Generation Neighborhoods projects at Holmes Towers. So authorization is requested to amend Board Resolution 18-5/3021, which authorized submission of the Section 18 application to HUD that was presented to the board in May. There's 3 items here that are noted in the amendment, but this is primarily to indicate the date of receipt of the letter of support from the deputy mayor as October 5th, 2018. This is a requirement for the Section 18 application. The act is the text of the act is a little fuzzy, but the HUD website states that this should be received before the board resolves to allow or to approve the submission of the Section 18. So it hasn't been an issue in the past. As long as we receive this letter before we actually submit the Section 18 application, no one's brought attention to it. But because of the high profile nature of this project and importance of this project, we just want to make sure all of our I's were dotted and T's were crossed. There's 2 other items here. The square footage has changed up at very small increments, but we just wanted those numbers to match what will be in the Section 18 application, which is intended for submission next month. At the May board meeting, there was also questions when Ms. White's presented this about the resident hiring for this project. We have since brought on, or the developer has since brought on a contractor, and they've submitted a draft hiring plan. So Section 3 is not required for this project because no federal funds are anticipated to be used. But we have stress the importance of resident hiring. It's something we hear about all the time from residents with our development work. So they've submitted a draft plan of 63 projected NYCHA resident hires for construction. As well, they've committed to doing on-site partnership sessions and trainings for residents interested in OSHA trainings and like opportunities. Honestly, we think that that's a little bit aggressive, but we'll work with NYCHA Reese to finalize the realistic plan over the coming months. Additionally, Fetner, the development team, has committed to at least 50% of the new permanent jobs for the building will be NYCHA resident hires, and that which is approximately, they expect to be about 8 jobs. If there's any other questions about that. And then moving on to Resolution 17. Authorization is requested to execute an off-site parking restrictive declaration of authority-owned and leased land located at 315 102nd Street in Manhattan in favor of a housing development on adjacent property by 2nd and 103 LLC, and to negotiate and enter into a contract with that developer for payment of the parking declaration. So pursuant to Board Resolution 09-610-3 back in 2009, the board authorized the authority to enter into a long-term ground lease for what was then known as Metro North. It's now known as Hobbs Court Siena, for the rehab of five vacant 6-story buildings, the construction of a new building for affordable housing, which contained a 196 parking space garage underground. There is a developer planning to build a new building next door to that property, and has approached us and Phipps Housing, who operates that new building, to essentially buy the rights to parking spaces that are underground of that development. By zoning, they will have to provide parking. It's allowable per zoning to do that sort of off-site or really closely nearby. There's more spaces at that existing underground garage than is required for the zoning for the Hobbs Court development. So basically, we're going to enter into a parking declaration that says this parking will be available to the new building should it be needed for the life, and that'll run with the ground indefinitely. The developers offered to pay $25,000 for each space to be split between the authority and Phipps, the nonprofit owner-operator of that project. The exact number of spaces that they'll need is not finalized yet, but we expect it'll be 55 to 80, which would raise $687,000 to $1 million for the authority. There's no plans for the use of those proceeds at this time, but we'll work with capital to use those on NYCHA capital repairs.
So this one confused me a little bit, because what this seems to suggest is that the development that was approved back in 2009 massively overbuilt the parking, which means that the costs for that project were way more than they needed to be. So that's, I guess, the first point, like how that construct was, I guess, the logic behind such a massive parking facility being built in conjunction with that earlier project. And then the second piece, it has to do just with the pricing of this 25,000. I mean, where did that come from? Is that actually based on cost? Is that a market number based on an appraisal? And why? And then also the logic behind the 50% split, as opposed to NYCHA getting more. Is relating back to point one, which is that the costs for the original project seem to be more than they should have been.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know exactly why the 196 unit garage was developed initially. The zoning regs for affordable housing and parking required associated with zoning regulations have changed since then. So maybe it was just a higher requirement then and now it's not. But I can get you more information on sort of the original development plans there.
And they've been operating this garage as a for-profit entity?
They lease the garage to a vendor, and people are, whether or not they live in Hobbs Court, they're allowed to rent out spaces, but it's not free parking for anyone. It's just it's a garage.
Right.
That's open to the residents of those buildings and to the public. And the developer who's purchasing this parking to fulfill zoning requirements doesn't intend to use that unless people in their building want to also rent and operate.
Right.
So it won't really change the operations of the parking facility. This is understandably a pretty unique situation and a little confusing, even for us. It's not one we dealt with before. That said, we've looked at the $25,000 number. We think it would probably cost a little bit more than that, slightly, to actually build like subterranean parking for the new project. So this is probably just a little bit cheaper for the developer than actually building the parking on site themselves. So we think it's a pretty fair. We think if we sort of ask for more, they might just say, we'll just that's more expensive than building it ourselves, et cetera. The split. This is Phipps was originally approached and offered the deal. The developer approached us. It's technically because it's our land, we're the one that have to enter into the parking, the declaration that will run with the land. It requires their consent though, because there's there's old legal documents associated with the former transaction. So all parties will have to sign off on this. So it just seemed like a fair deal and really little to no impact on NYCHA other than the receipt of revenue.
Right. And it's a one-time payment only if the residents of the new development actually want those spots, or is it a one-time payment no matter what?
It's a one-time payment no matter what.
Yeah.
So once they finalize plans for the development, say they need the maximum that we're asking, 80 spots, we would execute a parking declaration at the same time. We'd have a contract for the developer to pay us and Phipps Housing $1 million each. And we get that money and, like I said, spend it on NYCHA capital repairs. And that parking declaration that restriction will run with the land indefinitely. It is planned to be affordable housing for the next 91 years, so we don't expect there to be any changes in the garage or anything like that.
What do you mean by that restriction will run? That what's the restriction? I think the language is tripping me up a little bit here. Like if you said we're selling this.
Yeah.
So somewhat equivalent, but this declaration, so or restriction.
So that piece of land will be required to provide parking basically for the neighboring piece of land indefinitely. As long as zoning requires it, as long as we have cars and parking spaces.
So regardless what happens to that development as well.
Yeah, regardless of what happens to that development. I mean, there is, if something were to happen 50, 60 years from now, then, there might be ways to remove that restriction, but we anticipate that it would just run with the life of the property indefinitely.
And who regulates that?
That's a recorded document. Right? It's recorded.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good morning, Tricia Roberts, VP of Finance. I'm here to request item number 18, authorization to enter into agreement with NYCHA. Requesting the agreement with NYCHA to use its proprietary insurance tracking system known as RiskWorks including system maintenance, configuration, technical support, commencing on December 15, 2018, and continuing through December 14, 2023, on such other date as determined by the general manager, the executive vice president of finance, and continuing the 5-year thereafter, not to exceed amount. The New York City Housing Authority Finance Risk Management Department is responsible for monitoring insurance compliance for all authorities, contracted third-party partners, included vendors, contractors, as well as community groups. The task involves requesting and receiving, filing, and tracking tens of thousands of certificates of insurance for the authority's partners. By monitoring and enforcing compliance of the proper insurance coverage, finance can support the authority's goal of maximizing risk transfer through the contextual indemnification and facilitating any financial recoveries in the event insurance claims result from their partners' activities. The RiskWorks system is based on market research, actually has a software that is absolutely adaptable and compatible with our current software for the authority's procurement system. One of the reasons why we're asking for the sole source. It has actually helped us to track tens of thousands of concurrent contracts for our NYCHA partners who are doing contracts with the authority. It estimates and provides that time to receiving over the length of the contract through closeout. So the system provides the efficiencies with the technology necessary to monitor this real time and ask for the request and track it along the life of the contract. Any questions? Thank you.
We have to approve it. Okay, I move that the members be authorized to meet in executive session as necessary to discuss the civil investigative demand.
Don't we have to vote?
Yes, Chair, I'm good with that. Chair, 18 items were counted. To discuss stuff, we still can.
No.
She didn't read today. It's not, today isn't written. As necessary. Okay. Could you read the motion again?
Okay.
As, just as it is there.
Loud and clear. I move that the members be authorized to meet in executive session as necessary to discuss the civil investigative demand.
Okay, thank you. The Chair, 18 items were calendared. One item, number 7, was withdrawn. Therefore, 17 items and one motion were presented for board approval. Do I have a motion to approve the items and the motion?
Motion.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There being no other business before the board today, may I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Move. Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.